Hi all, my name is Terry. I did my activity on volcanoes. I just am going to read through my activity first, and then I will do my activity for you. So this is a 4th grade lesson. The materials are a map with the tectonic plates, longitude, and latitude labeled on them. It's very important those things are on there. I should tell you that I actually got my map off of a site where I got the same idea for this activity because it's hard to find maps with good longitude, latitude, and plate tectonics on. A data sheet. The data sheet should have a list of volcanoes. So most of my volcanoes are going to fall somewhere near the Pacific plate, but you could do different volcanoes depending on what you wanted to emphasize. You could do the Ring of Fire right here. You could concentrate on those volcanoes, and that would actually lead into a really good discussion because it's a pretty interesting area. I would need a computer, a projector, and a video link because I do have a video that goes along with this lesson. I won't show you guys because, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how to do that from here, but I will post the video link down in the submission box. So if you guys want to watch the video, you can watch a video. I would only show about 3 minutes of it to my students, not the entire thing, and a very select part of it, because it is a little bit, some of the concepts are a little bit more middle school, high school level than they are elementary, but I like the way they word things. So that's why the video that I picked. And then a ruler. You don't have to have the ruler, but the ruler helps, especially for kids, because then it helps them see the numbers that maybe they can't see. So my next generation science standard, it's important to note it was very hard to find a science standard for volcanoes. Usually it was in the clarifying statement that I found volcanoes. So just in the future, if you try to do a project with volcanoes, realize that it is super hard to find a standard for volcanoes. Okay. I picked 4ESS2. Analyze and interpret data from maps to describe patterns of Earth's features. Clarifying statement. Maps can include topical maps of Earth's land and ocean floor, as well as maps of the location of mountains, continental boundaries, volcanoes, and earthquakes. Science and engineering practice. Analyze and interpret data to make sense of phenomena using logical reasoning. Disciplinary core idea. Plate tectonics and large-scale system interactions. The location of the mountain range, deep ocean trenches, ocean floor structures, earthquake and volcanoes occur in patterns. Most earthquakes and volcanoes occur in bands that are often along the boundaries between continents and oceans. Major mountain chains form inside continents or near their edges. Maps can help locate the different land and water feature areas of Earth. Cross-cutting concept. Patterns can be used as evidence to support an explanation. Common Core State Standard Connection, ELA literacy. Interpret information presented visually, orally, or quantitatively. In charts, graphs, diagrams, timelines, animations, or interactive elements of web pages, and explain how the information contributes to an understanding of the text in which it appears. Mathematics. Use the 4 operations to solve world problems involving distance, intervals of time, liquid volumes, mass of objects, and money, including problems involving simple fractions or decimals, and problems that require expressive measurements given in a large unit in terms of smaller units. Represent measurement quantities using diagrams such as number lines diagrams that feature a measurement scale. This can easily be done because you're using a small map here, and it's supposed to be the world. So you can easily take measurements maybe from one volcano to another volcano, and then have them make a fraction to relate that to the distance that it actually would be, of Earth instead of just on this very tiny map. Well, medium-sized map. All right, so let's do our activity. So for my procedures, the first thing I would do is I would ask students to tell me what they remember about plate tectonics. We should have just covered plate tectonics in the previous lesson, talked about what they were. They should know the word diverge, converge, and we may or may not have talked about how mountains can form using plates. If we didn't, it'll be covered kind of in this lesson too, but they should already know that. So first thing, ask students how they think volcanoes are formed and why they believe they form where they form. Some students may think that it's just sporadic. I've heard some students tell me that volcanoes only form where it's cold out. There's all kinds of weird answers out there. So ask students that. Don't tell them the answer, just ask them. And then we're going to split students into groups of 4. So no more than 4 people in one group. You want to split them into groups because it can be really daunting to plot all of these points whenever you are only in the 4th grade. So we're going to have them do it in groups. Then I'm going to give each student a map and each student a data sheet with the volcanoes on it. For students that have never done plotting before, which if they're in the 4th grade, they should have done plotting by now. But if they didn't, you might want to do a few examples. It could never hurt to bring up longitude and latitude because your students may not know what that is. So tell them that it's a lot like Battleship. Show them how it's like Battleship. Maybe plot a point for them first so that they know what they're doing. Tell students that they have 20 minutes to mark as many volcanoes as they can. If your students finish early, or maybe they're more advanced students, it might be a good idea to let them find their own volcanoes too. So maybe they find some of their own longitude and latitude. That would be really good for your students that are a little bit maybe ahead of the other students. Maybe they're just get done with everything zippy fast. So then those students aren't just sitting there. And you could also, if you have a map like this, you could have them go over and plot it on the map because the map has longitude and latitude too. And then they can actually see with the countries and the states and they get to see it on the larger map with the oceans. If you want, you can make this a competition. I would make a competition, say whoever finds the most, maybe they don't have to clean up for lunch or something like that. Then whenever they're all done, they're going to get together in their groups and they're going to answer these questions. There's only 4 of them, and they may not know all the answers. They may not get the answers correct. That's okay. That's why you're there. You want to make sure that you're walking around though, so that you can help answer questions. And if they have an answer that's incorrect, you're addressing it and talking to them. So don't just be sitting at your desk. Be walking around and asking questions and know the answers to the questions. All right. So what did you notice about the location of the volcano in relation to the plates? I have already plotted all of my points because I didn't think that you guys wanted to sit here and watch me plot points for 20 minutes. That would have been very, very boring for you. So I didn't do it. It's really more fun if you're doing it. So if you have the chance, maybe print this out, pause the video, do it yourself, and then come back because that would be fun. So if you notice, all of my points are along boundary lines. I think I have 1 or 2 volcanoes in here that are not really that close to a boundary line. That comes up later. That's another question. So my ideal answer for that is that they all are along boundary lines or close to a boundary line, okay? Or most of them. If they even want to relate that closer to the map, You can ask a more specific question like, what countries do the most volcanoes appear in? Or what ocean does some of the volcanoes seem to be closest to? Second, by which ocean did you find the most volcanoes? The particular volcanoes that I had them map are on the Pacific Plate. Most of them appear near the Pacific Plate. However, a really good idea, if you're interested in it, is to have them do a few more volcanoes around the Ring of Fire, because it's a very interesting area and it's got a lot of volcanic activity, especially lately. And so it might be fun to have them look up stuff in the news too about the Ring of Fire, because it is very, very active, especially lately. They've probably heard about 6 volcanoes or so that have gone off there in the last year alone. So that would be fun to do something for. So to the specific one that I printed out, their answer should be that they found it by the Pacific Ocean. Okay, and that's the answer I'm looking for. I asked that question because I wanted them to actually relate it back to a map. I wanted them to have to look at a map and tell me how it related to an actual map. Explain why you think so many volcanoes are at the edge of the plates. So they should start to come up with this is where they may not get this right, because it's a hard question. However, if they know how mountains are formed, they should have some kind of idea what is forming volcanoes. If they don't, if they get it wrong, then just go by and talk to them, have answers, make sure you're asking questions. And then also the video that I show goes over how volcanoes are formed as well. Did you find any big volcanoes not near the edge of a plate? So one that they should come up with is right here in the Pacific Ocean, like right around here. Okay. And I asked them, why do they think that volcano might have formed there? I just want them to give me an answer, because it's good to ask those kinds of questions. Not all volcanoes are right on a boundary line. So you want to answer those questions too. And maybe it's not this lesson, maybe it's the next lesson, but it's a good question to ask. And you can briefly talk about it whenever you're going over the answers. Okay. Safety instructions. Walk while in the classroom. Oh, after you do this, it's good to talk through your answers and your questions together as a class. Okay? Don't just say, okay, we watched the video, move on. Ask questions, talk about them as a group, as a class. Walk when in the classroom. It's always good, I've been told, to pose your safety instructions as positives instead of negatives. Don't use the word don't or you shouldn't, or give your students ideas of what they can do with a ruler. Just tell them to leave the ruler on the table. So walk when in the classroom, only use pencils on paper, and rulers should always be on the desk. Notice I did not say don't in any of those. Content. Volcanoes form when plates are pushed together or pulled apart underneath the Earth's surface. When volcanoes are diverging away from each other, it causes an opening in the crust, which then fills with magma. When plates are colliding, this causes a trench, which can result in a volcano. This is why we can map volcanoes and see the most of them run along the plate boundary lines. Notice I said most, not all. Do not use the word all, because you're wrong. Not all of them do. My terms that I used are volcano, a mountain or hill from which lava, rock, fragments, hot gas, and other gases are being or have in the past erupted. Tectonic plates are larger rocks that move underneath the Earth's surface. Diverging, this is when plates are moving away from each other. I said this word before that they should already know it. It doesn't hurt to put it back in there again and remind them, because it does have to do with how volcanoes are formed. Converging, this is when plates are moving toward each other. Magma, molten rock in the Earth's crust. You won't meet many children that don't know what magma is. They love magma. And then I just have 3 different websites. They're all videos because I tend to like videos more. They show a lot of information. And some of them are at a lower level for my lower level students. Some of them are at a higher level, because I think it's important to have that kind of diversity. So, teaching techniques, cooperative learning. My students are working together in groups, because it's always a good idea to work together in a group sometimes for science, because then you're bouncing ideas off of each other. Student-centered approach. I'm not telling my students right off the bat what causes volcanoes. I'm actually asking them to look at a map and plot some points and then tell me what's going on. They should be learning on their own what's going on. They should be seeing things. They should be making observations. I want them to form those by themselves. I don't want to tell them. Game-based learning. I said it's game-based learning because it's supposed to be a race, 20 minutes, who can get the most volcanoes down. You don't have to do it as a race if you don't want to. If you're not into competition in the classroom, I know they'll let a lot of teachers that are not into competition in the classroom. So if you're not into that, don't do it. Math students. This is integration. So math students will use longitude and latitude to plot points. Students will interpret data to discuss their findings. English students will interpret the information they found from the map to write clear and coherent descriptions of volcanoes and their location. That would be happening on the handout. They should be writing down some answer, and you should make it clear that you don't want just one-word answers. You want full sentences, you want capitals, you want periods. It's a good way for them to practice their writing in a more sciencey way. I know sciencey is not a word. I'm sorry. Extend. Have students discuss how volcano, earthquakes, and plate tectonics all have to do with one another. Start by having students map some earthquakes on the same map they plotted their volcanoes. So you can actually find where a lot of volcanoes happen. They have names for a lot of, earthquakes. They have names for a lot of earthquakes. And what I would do is have them use a different color and map some earthquakes that happen quite often, and have them see that they actually happen around that boundary line. The video that I am having them watch, actually, there's a part in it where it talks about why the why earthquakes happen so close to where the volcanoes are happening. And that goes along with plate tectonics too, so they should kind of have some idea of that as well. Have students discuss the parts of a volcano and what causes a volcano to erupt. I have not yet discussed with them the parts of a volcano, the different kinds of volcanoes. All we're talking about is why volcanoes are where they are. So an extension is to really get more in depth with volcanoes and talk about what they are and why they are, and the different kinds, because there's a lot of different kinds, and the different layers, because that's fun. And that's how you do one of those projects where they get to build a volcano that explodes. I just didn't want to get my living room dirty. Okay, and that's it. Thanks, guys.